Welcome back to Face the State on this Sunday morning. Many aspects of Connecticut's legal system were put on pause during the pandemic. With us now, attorney Rich Rochlin is joining us now to talk about the impact this has had on people all across our state. And attorney Rochlin, good to see you here on the program again.
Thanks for having me.
I want to ask you, first of all, let's give us an overview for our viewers who don't really understand exactly what is going on with the legal system. What is open and what's closed right now?
Well, courts are open, but their role is very limited. They're open Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and a limited number of courts are open. So there's sort of three aspects of the court system. There's the criminal, there's the civil, and then there's the family, and then there's probate and juvenile. The criminal cases are really handling arraignments for very serious offenses, and other things, misdemeanors and lower-level felonies are being delayed and pushed out and not being dealt with. So there's a huge backlog that's being handled, that's being, that's accruing essentially, and is going to be dealt with sometime in the future.
I know you've been very concerned with family court in terms of custody cases and divorces. Tell us a little bit about the impact that that's having on families.
Right. So a lot of families are waiting to get into court. The court is only open for what they call priority business one functions. So things like restraining orders, emergency custody orders, and those types of things. Even support enforcement that collects child support on behalf of folks is closed down. So it's really had a tough impact on people because they can't get into court. So there's certain parents that have arrangements where they're withholding the child from the other parent, and there's no way to get into court to deal with that. The courts have not deemed that to be an emergency. And so people have been waiting, some of them 8-10 weeks, without the ability to see their children or have the ability to go to court to get that addressed.
Who's falling through the cracks during all of this?
Oh boy, it's the kids, I think, right? I mean, I think the kids, I'm hoping that the courts can open up more quickly and put things in place, but they're turning a big ship and they have to put things in place to keep everybody safe. But at the same time, there's kids that aren't seeing their parents, and that's ultimately psychologically damaging to the children.
Have you seen an increase? We've heard reports of increased family tensions. Everyone's in the house all this time in terms of filings for divorces and things like that?
I haven't seen that yet. There's been talk of it sort of ticking up. I've seen this week more calls have come in about it. People that have existing cases, but other people that were sort of on the fence about divorce. People have called and talked about what are the next steps, because the court has now put things in place that we can get people divorced without going to court. And so that's helpful. We didn't have that before.
What do we know about when the courts will reopen fully, that is?
Well, the courts sent out some documents this week basically stating that they're going to start to have comp status conferences, pre-trials. They're going to check in with lawyers to try to move cases through the use of Microsoft Teams, which is like Zoom. That's going to start next week. We hear that after that, sometime maybe after Memorial Day, they're going to start opening with some distancing in places, because there's a backlog that's accruing on these cases. And in certain cases, you have to get to court to deal with them. So while you can handle certain things if you come to agreement, we're being told that sometime after Memorial Day, we'll be able to get into court, perhaps with social distancing measures in place.
You talk to police officers and lawyers, and they'll tell you that the freshest memories are always the best ones from witnesses in terms of cases and things like that. With all these things being delayed, do you anticipate that this will have a negative impact on certain trials because the witnesses can't recall and things like that?
Well, that's right. I mean, all trials have been suspended indefinitely. And even if we get back to court, there'll be what we call courtside hearings. In other words, a judge will be handling it, not a congregation of jurors packed into a room. So family cases are not handled by juries. They're handled by courts. But certainly criminal cases and civil cases can be as well. We know that eyewitness testimony, has issues with reliability, and certainly the longer time goes by, and certainly people are living through a somewhat traumatic experience, it's not going to make things easy. It may, in fact, force the government to, give deals or plea deals to people, or force people to resolve cases because they're uncertain about the outcome.
Lawyers themselves will often joke that no one feels badly for a lawyer when he or she is sort of down on his or her luck. But in terms of income, how is it affecting the legal profession?
Oh, it's hurting. It's, folks had things to do sort of after the courts closed down. And some folks have practices where they do only collaborative work, family work, so they can mediate and those kinds of things. I'm sorry. So they do those types of things. So but otherwise, if your practice involves going to court to resolve issues or have hearings, folks have been out of business ostensibly for the last 2 months. It's been very difficult.
And in terms of law schools and things like that, how does it impact that?
Well, the bar exam, I believe, has been delayed. The grievance committee, the committee that deals with discipline of lawyers, has put everything on hold. Law schools are going to graduate people, but there's so much uncertainty in the big firms, and even the medium-sized firms aren't hiring people because of the financial uncertainty. So everybody's taking a pause, and nobody knows where things are going to head, especially when there's 30 million people now out of work. It's a very trying time. Tensions are running high. There's a lot of stress, and nobody knows what's next. And so that's putting a lot of pressure to bear on the profession.
Let me ask you this, and we don't know what's going to happen when the courts do reopen, what kind of restrictions there will be, but would it be difficult to argue a case wearing a mask and having all the witnesses wear masks as well?
Well, if it's in person, the answer is no. I think that can be done. I think Connecticut has long disfavored having people testify by Zoom because the court can't observe the witness's demeanor. And the lawyer, frankly, can't either. And that's a big part of determining somebody's credibility. But I think a mask with in-person testimony is certainly fine, and the courts will be able to adapt to that very quickly.
Rich Rochlin, attorney, we thank you so much for being with us on this Sunday morning. Stay safe out there, and we'll see you here again in person one of these days.
Thanks so much, Dennis. Appreciate it.
And we thank you so much for watching Face the State on this Sunday morning. CBS Sunday Morning with Jane Pauley is coming up next, and of course our next news is tonight. We leave you now with the sights and sounds of our beautiful state capitol. It's our moment of calm. And remember, we are in this together, and we will get through this together. Have a great Sunday, everybody. Thanks so much for watching.